All right, welcome everyone today to our NextOp panel. We had a short break, so December we didn't have a panel. Our last panel we had was again November, and we had Impacted Hero jump on here and just give a presentation about their upcoming leadership course and their what the resources they offer for Impacted Hero. So again, you can jump on YouTube to our channel and check that out, and check out any of our previous um, webinars we had or panels we had over the year. Before we begin, I'm going to do some housekeeping rules. So again, this session is recorded, so please place your devices on mute unless you're speaking. Feel free to use the chat room if you have any questions. Again, this is a small informal setting, so we encourage you to enable your video, and then when you do have a question, just go unmute, converse with us, and then let's go back to mute when you're done speaking. Just want to kind of give you an overview of purpose of our NextOp panel. So again, this is a different setting. This is very informal. We kind of created this obviously in light of the pandemic, and we were kind of shut down with doing in-person meetings and workshops. So we thought of a way to still impact veterans, still impact those transitioning from the service to civilian sector. And we wanted to still, again, assist in any way. So we created this panel, again, as an informal, during lunch hour, if you will, just kind of a way to communicate, speak to one another, we could talk about our issues, our concerns, maybe our fears as we transition our employment search. So this is kind of our safe place to discuss different topics. We've gone over many different topics over the past year, since June, I believe we started. So whether it's just navigating your transition, your process, resume writing, application tracking system, interview preparation, all those type of I guess skills that you would need to make a successful transition or your career search. So today we're excited because today we're going to have an in-depth discussion on LinkedIn. We thought about doing a LinkedIn for a while just because speaking with veterans, speaking with people that are getting out of the military service. I know a lot of them, they're told to, hey, create a LinkedIn profile that's going to help you. And then we'll go on to the next thing and we'll talk about it, later type of thing. So it's really, there's no reason why you're doing it. There's not really a sit down and this is how you navigate it. This is how you build a profile. This is how you do X, Y, and Z. It's just create a profile. You can find jobs here. Good luck. That's kind of what my introduction was for LinkedIn. So I created it, I built it, and I sat there and waited for this awesome platform to give me a job or to connect with people, which didn't really happen at first. So again, you have to sit here and actually, learn from different people. And this LinkedIn is a really awesome tool that's not only used for a job board, but it's also can be used for mentorship, just to help you with your civilian career change or your transition. There's so many people out there that's willing to help each other out in that platform there. So definitely, I think it's worthwhile to sit here for the next hour and really dive deep into what it's all about and how to market yourself, how your branding, and how the algorithms work on LinkedIn, because it all comes into play and it rewards you based off how much you utilize it. So we'll go talk about that a little more. I do want to kind of mention our staff here at NextOp. We have today with Tiffany Bradbury, Employment Coordinator. We have Dina Anderson, also Employment Coordinator. I want to give a shout out to Craig Kasip. He's not here today. He's with Workforce Solutions, but he also helped create this panel that we've been going over the past couple months here. So he's definitely a big contributor. I just want to say, thank you to him, and hopefully we'll have him on our next month's panel. With that being said, I will introduce today's presenter. Her name is Laura Butler. She is the program manager for the Onward Opportunity program with the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, and she's out there in the El Paso Fort Bliss borderplex. So without further ado, I will introduce Laura, and thank you very much. Laura.
Hi all, good morning. It's a nice cloudy, rainy day here in El Paso. So makes for an interesting time this morning. So yes, my name is Laura Butler. I am the program manager for Onward Opportunity out here in West Texas. So just a little bit of info about me. I've been in education for longer than I would like to admit. I usually just tell people 10 plus years. It makes me feel better. I'm a military spouse. So if I have any spouses here, I feel your pain. I understand the challenge, especially when we're starting to talk about building up a network, maintaining it as we move around in our career. On top of doing the O2O thing, for years, I was actually a contractor for the Department of Labor. So I taught a lot of those ETAP classes for transitioning service members. So this LinkedIn part is something I'm really passionate about. And a little unknown fact about me, other than this is actually my third nonprofit I've worked for. I started my career actually as a high school band director. So I've been around, I've done a lot in the last decade or so. It's kind of culminated to what I do now with Onward Opportunity. Next slide. And for those of you that don't really know too much about O2O, I'm a free program, so I'm a 501c3 nonprofit. So we actually offer free training and certification for the military community, whether you're a veteran transitioning out of the military, Guard, Reserve, or a spouse of all the above. You can actually come in and get a free certification with me. We go over a lot of great speakers, curriculum. I go over LinkedIn in depth, resumes, interviews. So we really want to make sure that people are on the right track for wherever they are in their careers, whatever transition they're going through. So a little bit about me, we've got, I think over 40 different certifications now, a couple different programs running. You can see a little bit of the list here. So just kind of an FYI, if you have more questions about it, feel free to ask me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer questions or help any of you out. Oh, great. Somebody just started their CAPM yesterday. You got this. And if you want to connect with me, I am a project manager myself. I do project manager Fridays on LinkedIn. So I always post up interesting articles, things that are, going on with the exams, especially this had to change over January 2nd with the PMP exam. So we really want to make sure people, and even I'm networked and connected with, are getting the information they need to be successful taking their exams. So just kind of an FYI there. Next. So this is ultimately what we're going to talk about today. I've got a few slides to run through that we can spark the conversation a bit. Just, do some housekeeping pieces and some basics with the LinkedIn profiles, like to call it kind of the LinkedIn 101. Talk a little bit about personal branding. Why am I on LinkedIn? Why are people making me do this kind of component as well? And then ultimately, I like to call it hashtag the more you know. It's actually something that's even part of my brand on social networking, is just making sure that you've got the right information to move forward, and you can keep, moving and making your profile even better. Especially as the platform makes regular changes. The last few years, I've seen them make at least a couple of major changes every year to how the platform works. So there's my hashtag, the more you know. And then ultimately even who to talk to, who to appropriately connect with to make sure you can make the best use out of your profile. And of course, that's going to vary depending on what purpose you have for the profile. But for a lot of us, it's the job search. And even beyond that, how do you do maintenance? So that's where we're going to really kind of key into that Q&A here. So this is really informal. If I'm talking about something in one of the slides and you're more interested or you have a question, please, let us know, pop something in the chat, and I'll start to address things as we go. Speaking of the chat, oh, great. We got somebody else for PHR. I love hearing everyone's taking advantage of O2O. So next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about personal branding here. And while I'm chatting here, please feel free to pop stuff in the chat. So branding is really one of those interesting topics that everyone talks about. What is my brand? How do I get this across? And I'll kind of float this question out here to those of you that are on here right now. What do you consider a brand to be in general terms, in broad stroke terms? So go ahead and pop some of that information in the chat for me. What is a brand? So something that I have in here, and I've got this as an example. This is actually information that you can find if you delve into my LinkedIn profile. So who am I? And I'll just touch on a couple points in here and point out a few things. Passionate educator, nonprofit program manager, over 15 years experience teaching, facilitating, training, briefing, tutoring, and managing projects for 3 nonprofits in a 10-year period. Known track record for creating successful programs from scratch, love working with the military community, and have done so for over 8 years. And I even have some of my hashtag examples that people in my community here, people that know me, people that follow me, know that I organize and I use these quite a bit. The hashtag I am everywhere tag pre-COVID was a big deal out here for me, because if anybody saw hashtag I am everywhere, a post with what I'm doing, oh, yep, that's Laura. That's part of her brand. She is always out in the community. That hashtag milspouse, hashtag project management. It's all things that you're going to see revolve around, especially when we're talking about a social media brand. So you want to find those things that really start to have you stand out when you begin to engage your audience. And here, going back to my question, let's see what we have here in the chat. So representative of yourself, that's recognizable, content pillars, describe kind of professionally, what's important, what people recognize you for, passionate, belief in matter, information you want people to take away or know about you. Exactly. So, we start talking about those appropriate elevator pitches, those, in a nutshell, what people can glean from you. And part of that conversation too, other than who you are, past, present, and future, who do you serve also it actually becomes a necessary piece to this brand, other than even just interest, experience, skill sets. You also have to think about who you serve currently or who you want to serve. So that's something that's actually going to incorporate itself into this brand component. So we have one more thing in the chat. Basis of what you're about, regardless. Yeah, it's regardless of that current position or job. You may be doing something now, and Bobby, I'm actually going to tie that into something too. Was I always an educator? No. That military spouse component, being resilient, taking those soft skill sets into different roles. I went from education to banking and finance, which kind of a different role. Yeah, there's a lot of soft skills that go across between there. And then I took it to retail management while I was working nonprofit. Then I went to government contractor. Yeah, that started going back into education. But was I passionate about retail banking? Was I passionate about retail? Not so much. But that education component to my brand always stuck through, because there was always a component of educating my employees, educating my teams as I worked through these different roles. So it's always something you've been able to find and see throughout my LinkedIn profile. So that's something that's important to make sure that we try to create this cohesive brand for ourselves with what we're really passionate about and what we want others to know about us. Next slide, please. So I've got some fun numbers in here. I actually recently updated this, just jumping on. I was on a workshop basically with LinkedIn to get some information here. So, with a lot of my transitioning service members and spouses, myself and my own program, and even before I started with O2O, I'd always get the question, why LinkedIn? I hate social media. I don't want to do this. Someone just, what John was saying, someone just said, hey, you need to have this profile, trust me. And that was usually the end of the conversation. But this is a really easy, interesting, and professional way to build that online brand. Because as most of you are aware, companies do digital background checks on everybody, these social media background checks. So this is a component of it. 94% of employers roughly in the US are using this as a means to see who you are. Like this is where things are happening. And something that I tend to stress, having this positive online reputation, engaging your audience, showing what your interests and where your skills lie. LinkedIn really is the largest hiring fair on the planet. It's not just throwing your resume out there and waiting for bites from recruiters because we all know they're there. This really is this is a hiring fair. This is that elevator pitch. This is the resume. This is the skill sets. There's ways to interact with everybody and to find and engage with professional groups, talent acquisition, and to really see what's going on out there. So this is the pulse, especially with this COVID-19 world, on where you're going to find the most information about networking and careers moving forward. So something I always like to stress with everybody, there's over 680 million users on LinkedIn. This is worldwide. Over 30 million companies and 90,000 schools. And we talk about this, out of all those users, over 250 million people use this daily. That is huge, especially when we're talking about appropriate opportunities out there for you. 95% Fortune 500 companies. I mentioned the social media and background as a means for screening. 70% were hired at a company they had a connection to. 85% of employers said that positive reputation actually influenced their hiring with how individuals were engaging their audience. So, and this is where people are, those groups, organizations, mentors, influencers, recruiters, employers. Everything is literally just a few clicks away from where you are, especially since we all can't get out and go to physical events. This is a great opportunity for you. Next. So, we talk about that hidden job market. Everyone talks about the hidden job market. Things aren't always going to be readily available out there on a company website. Not everything's going to be on a job board. In fact, a lot of job boards are kind of going away or is not as influential as they used to be. So over 100 million job applications are submitted every month. That's crazy. 9 out of 10 employers are using this as part of the hiring process. And I'm going to be honest with all of you too, that public LinkedIn URL that you have on your account, a lot of people aren't even aware it's really there. They just know they have an account. That's actually something employers are expecting to see in the contact information of your resume now. So contact information section right there at the bottom. And that is something that I'll actually go over in a little bit too. If you have not edited and prettied up that public URL, it's definitely something that you're going to want to consider, especially if you're going to be using it for the job search. Next. So I've got a few little components on here just, and I'll address that in a second too. So just a few little maintenance pieces in here. This is my LinkedIn 101 piece, just to make sure everybody's got what they need on their LinkedIn. Photo custom backgrounds. I've got the pixel counts up here for you, the 450 by 450, 1400 by 425 background image. If you have that professional image up there, 21 times more views are actually going to go to your profile and engagement with recruiters. And this is something that's important too, because we talk about the physical written aspect of your brand, but any of you that don't have a custom background on your profile, that actually, you hear the term, a picture speaks 1,000 words. This is an opportunity for you to utilize that custom background piece to show your brand in a photo. And I'll actually show mine as an example here in a couple minutes too, just so you can see what I have. And I'll talk you through what I use for my background also. And it's changed a few times as my role and my career has changed. So something to take into consideration with the photo piece. Headline and taglines, roughly about I believe it's actually fully 127 character limit. It's about 5 to 10 words. abstract to who you are, what you do, keywords, what you've accomplished. This tagline piece has actually been important to branding as well, because, and this is something I still see out there pretty frequently amongst my network. It'll just say so-and-so job with so-and-so company. That's the default. Is that the most powerful thing you want to push out there, especially in a job search? So something to consider, something definitely to consider in there, like what you want to do and what keywords you want associated. And I'll take a closer look and answer questions about this too. Connections. This is everybody's goal, 500 plus. There's a few reasons for this, and I know there's discomfort with some people kind of putting themselves out there, not wanting to add people in that they don't really know. Once you hit the 500 goals, and this is talking from an algorithmic standpoint, this is where you're actually going to open yourself up to a whole other audience once you hit that 500 number. So I've seen engagement numbers increase anywhere between 12 to 22% once you hit that 500, as far as who's going to be able to view your profile and your posts. So that's something that also comes into consideration. Post and engagement, I'd like to have a larger conversation with all of you about this, is to share appropriate content, create an article, initiate discussions. We like to talk about the serial likers on LinkedIn. That may be some of you, but there's always, there's an associated rule, and this is something that Chris Thorne, even with Higher Military, talks about too, the 5-3-1 rule. So making sure that you have, at least 5 likes a day, 3 interactions, and 1 post, which is really going to start engaging your audience more, and you're going to find yourself out there more and getting more views and more interactions with your posts. Now, the summary too is something I'm going to talk about with the about section, because this is kind of that elevator pitch component with the snapshot of you, assets, accomplishments, and expertise. Now let me go ahead and go into the chat too before I talk too much more. Zafar, so not having your picture. My suggestion there is have a picture, because otherwise, especially if you're in a job search piece, because recruiters don't like to engage with somebody without a photo, especially now with so many fake profiles kind of floating around out there. And I mentioned the component about this being, it's not just putting your resume out there. The big issue with this is that it's a hiring fair. So it's an opportunity for you to have a professional headshot up there. Just like if you went to an event and you have to put on your best face for somebody. You can, however, go back and use your privacy settings. If it's not something that you want your profile picture out there in public, you can lock it down to, the individuals that are second. So kind of the professional network of your professional network, or first even. Recruiters are still going to be able to access that information, but it's not going to be out there for the whole world. So that would be my suggestion on the photo piece. Jennifer, Canvas has templates for LinkedIn banner, free to use. Yeah, you can create one for free too. And you can go to other websites that have ultimately free images. If you have any photos that best support what you're doing out there. Because even I used a free image when I was still a music teacher. I had that across the background to have some nice music notes. It was a free image you could utilize. Yes, be careful about copyrighted material. I will warn you about that. So yeah, Canvas is a good place to go. Okay, with regard to LinkedIn profile, link in the email signature, do you recommend hyperlink or the URL spelled out? You could really go either way. I will tell you with mine, when I usually put my LinkedIn information out there, in an email signature, I'll just do LI, my backslash, and then the unique part of the URL. So for mine, it's Laura Butler EDU, because there's 1.5 million Laura Butlers out there to be able to make that URL. Now, if we're talking about something for a resume or then, full hyperlink. Those of you that still utilize networking cards, which is totally fine if you go old school, there's actually the capability on here, and I'll talk about a little bit about a QR code that you can actually utilize and download. So I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to that spot too. So there's a few different ways you can actually push out your LinkedIn profile link. So with your email signature, I leave it up to you if you want to shorten it or do the full URL. You'll see both in email signatures. Mine's pretty busy. I've got a lot of info in mine, so I tend to go with the shortened URL. Okay, so I got that piece in there. You're very welcome. Let's go ahead and go into the next slide here for a second. So I mentioned in here that, I was going to show off a little bit of my profile. So this is actually a snapshot of my page that I have in here that I took last night. So, so you see here, my university photos up, nice headshot. You shouldn't have anything crazy in the background. No kids, no dogs, nothing inappropriate. I always tell people too that are transitioning out of the military, be mindful, don't use your DA photos. If you're transitioning, consider yourself that veteran and get yourself in some appropriate business attire. It's really important. And you can see here with my background image, this was really a big deal for me and why I switched it over and why it's part of my brand. So the IVMF, we moved into a new building. We had the Veterans National Resource Center at Syracuse University, the NVRC. So this actually was a couple years ago when I was out at SU, and it's everybody that works for the IVMF standing on the foundation of the building before it was built. So that is the entire team, like nationwide, right there in that one drone photo, standing where our new home is going to be. So that was really a cool thing for me. We talk about one IVMF, and that exemplifies it right there. Of course, post-COVID, and we can go back and visit the new building. I will update that picture to all of us at our new building. But you can see where something like that ties into my brand, seeing who I work for, who I am, knowing a little bit about me. That's really what you want to find with that picture speaks 1,000 words piece. So that's the kind of a big deal for me right there. And let me see, Umberto. Yeah, so JCPenney, I've heard that from a lot of people. They do a decent professional photo for you. You can even look in your local area too to see if there's any veteran or spouse photographers that you want to support. Even find a nice blank wall, or you've got some good space outside. Even a family member could take a picture of you. The only thing I will stress for you all, please, no selfies for your LinkedIn profile picture. It's pretty obvious. I always like to see the ones where you see the person in the car doing duck face for their selfie. So no, none of that stuff going on here. The other thing I want to focus to in this also, I'll go a little bit more into the about. You can see some of my articles. I've got flyers up. I've got info about the program. But right up here below my name, this tagline piece, or I mentioned you got roughly a little over 120 characters to work with. This is something that's going to evolve along with your brand. But I always like to consider this the abstract, if you will, the keyword abstract of what people are going to find littered throughout your profile. They're going to find this information in the about section. They're going to see it in your work experience. So for me, that educator, trainer, program manager, that is extremely indicative of my brand and has been for years. I've included a couple of my common hashtags in there too as keywords, because it's where you're going to find me. It's what you're going to find me using. I am definitely a military community advocate, because even outside of O2O, I actually serve on the Veterans Advisory Committee here. I'm a member of the VAC for my district. So, I'm out there, even as much as I can be virtually in my community. And then this isn't something you have to do in here. I always tell my spouses, it's totally up to you if you want to bring attention to the fact you're a military spouse. It's a matter of pride for me. If an employer's got a problem with it, then I probably shouldn't work there anyways, is my attitude. Some people tend to be a little bit more reserved about it. It's really a personal preference on there. But for me, it's important. It's important for what I do. It's important for my advocacy. So I make sure that I include this in here. If you are a transitioning service member on here, I usually tell people, you know, one of the last bullets anybody should see on there is veteran. Doesn't matter service. I don't like to tell people use transitioning military or transitioning service member. It's not indicative of who you're going to be as part of your brand. So have that veteran tag on there, especially if you're wanting those military friendly companies to jump in and take a look at your profile. Next slide. So I'm just going to cover a couple of top things in here too. Just some best practices for the summary. I like to say, yet again, digital elevator pitch. Your first couple of sentences should really be indicative of brand, experience, accomplishments, and aspirations. So anything that I talk about on here ties in with the resume, ties in with things on your profile. I hope most of you have heard of STAR. So that situation, task, action, result component. Anyone's ever been through those TAP classes have heard this. So making sure whatever you talk about as part of your career highlights, really, you're going to have some scope to it. And it's something you even saw in with my branding pitch about myself, those first couple of sentences. It gives scope to how long you've been doing something, how long you've had those skills. So something to consider as you start to build up this brand is to make sure that you have those necessary key highlighted pieces in there, so you can give the reader some scope about exactly it is what you've been doing. So we like to have past, present, future in there, you know, who you are, who you've been. You know, we talk about those behaviors, those things you've done with current and past jobs, and who you want to be and who you want to serve. I always like to equate this to where you see yourself in 5 years question. We talk about the future. So, you know, ultimately, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be able to connect with you also is going to tie into how you equate this to yourself with that about section. So that it ties directly to the headline, it ties to that work experience, and this is those career highlights. I usually like to tell people here to do a couple of paragraphs. You can highlight a few things about yourself in bullets, but this is really something that should be in your own voice. It's going to include those common skill sets. It's that conversation starter. Like, you know, just when you go to those networking and hire events and somebody says, hey, you know, here's me, here's my name. Who are you? Tell me a little bit about yourself. So this is something that should be in your voice. You know, I see a lot of people kind of do the copy paste from the resume where you're not supposed to be using pronouns. It sounds a little sterile. Put it in your voice, bring those pronouns back into it. This is a really good opportunity to appropriately introduce yourself to the world of LinkedIn. Next slide, please. Let's see, I've got one other piece in here. Slides available after the call. So what I can do for you all, if you're interested and get in touch with me, I'm going to point you to some resources and some cheat sheets that are actually going to have quite a bit of this information on there for you. I am willing to share them, but I'll put them in a different format for you, since some of this stuff is specific to my program that I'm going over to. So the answer to that, Jennifer, is mostly, if that's okay. So I'm going to cover just a few other little basic things. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, just to cover some key topics. And then of course I want to give enough time to field questions. Experience on LinkedIn is always chronological, reverse, past positions, titles, accomplishments, just like what you would on a chronological resume. So include volunteer experience. You get 6 times more views. versus somebody that doesn't. And then it's easier to fill employee gaps too, especially for any of my spouses here that have done some moving around, to find ways to leverage things, even if you didn't necessarily find a position for a while or an appropriate position while you were at an installation, that you can start filling in some of that information with just some of the things that you've done, whether it be with a spouse's unit, you volunteer for the USO, volunteer out in the community. This is a great way to show people that you've stayed engaged with your community, even though you haven't necessarily had a traditional job per se. And yeah, you actually can utilize volunteer experience under work experience. It depends on how engaged you were with it. So actually even a recommendation with that. So a couple of examples I have with that. I did some pretty heavy volunteer work over the years. It was almost like a full-time job to an extent, even in with my own profile. Like, you know, with my serving on the VAC here for the city of El Paso, you know, representing my veteran community, I don't get paid for that. But I do have it under my work experience because it's a lot of great skills and experience that directly correlates in with the rest of my work experience and my brand. So yeah, absolutely. I've fully incorporated that in as part of my work experience instead of my volunteer experience. Now, some things I have on volunteer experience, it's kind of like a once in a while thing. I still do it. I tap into it. So I'll give you an example. So for Texas Humanities, I'm a facilitator for Veterans Voices. It's a program that they do. We're supposed to be doing it again. COVID kind of messed up that schedule a little bit, but I facilitated a few workshops and we analyzed works about war and written by veterans. There were some poets in there, and we had real discussions with members of the military community and the student population. So for me, you know, it's something that I do sometimes. I really want to make sure I let people know, yeah, I volunteer with this program. It's great, but is it an all the time thing? No. So I actually put that in the volunteer experience section of my profile. So you have to weigh in the level of importance, whether it's going to go as part of the volunteer section versus your work experience section. So the VAC thing, that's an all the time thing. It's there. Veterans Voices, not so much, just a few times a year. So that's where I will stress to you as far as weighing in where it should go. So chapter president of a big organization, I'd probably put that in the work experience section versus volunteer. You can notate it's a volunteer position, but because it's so expansive, I would consider putting that in the work experience section instead. Okay, so we talked experience. Media, I usually just want to make sure I tell individuals to utilize uploading videos, presentations, PDFs to tell your story. Media can really, said with the photos, that can start to enhance what it is you actually do. So, you know, for my current position, I put up some cohort photos, I put up flyers. So anything that you really want to push out there and have as a permanent fixture on the profile that you want individuals to know about what it is you've done with that position, this is a good opportunity to put something up. Yet again, picture speaks 1,000 words, that's going to go along with that work experience section or the information that you have in your profile. Now, the skills section is interesting. So you can have up to 50 skills. You're going to highlight your top 3 that you think best exemplify your brand and collect endorsements. So, you know, this is something most of you probably seen within your profiles yourself. You go onto somebody's profile, oh yeah, I know that person, or I've taken a workshop with them, and you endorse them for a couple of skills. Proper etiquette, they come back, endorse you for some skills that they know that you're good at. So it's a really common practice and etiquette piece here on LinkedIn. It's something that you want to try to do. It is something recruiters look for also. You get 9 times more connection requests when you complete this. So 27 more times to be discovered in searches by recruiters. So it's those nice little endorsements that are in there. And I usually tell people also, along with the skill endorsements, especially if you're in that I'm looking for a new role kind of place, collect a couple of recommendations also. Those traditional, letters of recommendation that you used to send into employers when they asked for them. You can still do the same thing and ask somebody to recommend you on LinkedIn, write a little bit of information about you. It has to be people that have worked with you. So it's a nice, great little piece on there too that recruiters can see that go along with those skill sets as well. So it definitely elevates and enhances the profile. For the education piece, it's great. I saw a couple of you said, yes, I'm doing O2O or I've done O2O. This is an opportunity to get those degrees on there, training, certifications you're going for. In the accomplishment section too, we talk about organizations you're a part of, classes you've taken. This is going to give you 11 more time views that people are going to see you've got education. You've got these certifications that are going to tie in. Certifications are hard skills. And depending on the roles we're going for, can actually really start to weigh in over the degree or edge you out from other individuals that are going for similar positions. And something I actually, I digress for a moment, I didn't mention with the skill set piece on here. So those of you that are taking LinkedIn learning classes, let's say, most of us that are on premium profiles, you get LinkedIn learning for free. So when you take one of those LinkedIn learning classes to enhance your knowledge, it will even actually suggest some skills to add to your profile after you've taken that course. So if you're having trouble thinking of 50 things, like, man, okay, I'm at like 28. I'm like, I feel like I could do more here. And let's say you go take some learning for HR, you go take some learning for project management, even something like, I want to enhance my public speaking skills. Let me go take the most popular public speaking class I can on LinkedIn. It'll give you suggestions. You get a little certificate. You can even add these classes in. It goes along with your accomplishments and your certifications. And it'll say, maybe you should add these skill sets to your profile. So it's another way to help kind of build up and beef up that LinkedIn profile with those skill sets a little bit. And I'm going to touch on this too a little bit too. Groups, people, topics. Make sure you're following certain hashtags you're interested in if you want to hear from more of those individuals that use those hashtags. They show up in your profile, they show up in your feed, shows interest. And you find groups, find professional organizations, find topics that you're interested in and follow. As you start to find more of that information, stuff you can reshare, that you can engage and that you can talk about with your audience. Next slide. So just a couple of things with notes on the experience piece in here. You can kind of read through this a little bit. I mentioned, don't stay away from transitioning service member, milspouse, use it as part of your identity if you want. You want to make sure this is really something we talk about algorithms too, but at the same time, also being real to yourself and your brand. Just make sure any keywords you're using, any lingo that you're using throughout your entire profile, whether it be you're transitioning from the military, you're a veteran, you're speaking the language of the industry that you're going into or that you're currently in. That's actually a challenge for a lot of people, especially as you start to pivot into new job roles, is to make sure that you're speaking the appropriate lingo for the employers that you really want to start to harness and have come in. So I always tell people to optimize, take a look around at some other profiles just for people in similar industries or transitioning service members that have a good profile, to make sure that things are going to be in the correct language, that you're going to attract the right recruiters to you. So that's something that I really want to stress in here. And, when you start talking about who you've worked for or who you work for, make sure there's a little logo in there when you put in the company name. This is pretty common for a lot of individuals, especially if transitioned out of the military. They find different ways to put they were in the military and their branch of service. So I see a lot of individuals that'll have Army on there and there's no logo, there's no picture. It means you didn't pick the right set of words that's going to link you to everybody else that has served in the Army. So it's U.S. Army. in there. So if there's no picture in where it's that little box next to where your experience is, recruiters are not going to see you the proper way. You're not going to have that unifying connection to all those other individuals that have served. So keep that in mind. Not every single organization is on LinkedIn and has a page. In fact, one of the organizations I worked for, yes, there's no picture. We're not there. But for a large majority of them, they are. And that's something you really want to make sure that you harness. So just kind of an FYI in there for the experience section. Next slide. So I mentioned my reminders, customize that public LinkedIn URL. So where you go to do this, actually, it's best to do it from a desktop site. So when you go to your profile, top right-hand corner, there will actually be a little box that says edit public LinkedIn URL. This is where you can do it. It'll give you a warning. This isn't something that you want to change regularly. Once you change it, try to stick with it. It should be some version of your name. You know, we talk about that's the most professional thing you can do with your email. Same thing with your LinkedIn profile. Instead, if you're like me and you have a super common name, I have no intention on getting out of education, so I added an edu in there for mine. Some people, it'll be initials and last name, first and last name, first, middle, last name, whatever you need to do that's going to add it on there. The big deal with this, and most of you have seen by default, they put a lot of extra letters and numbers after your name in the profile. There's a lot of dashes. That's the stuff you want to make sure that you get cleaned up. There's also the career interests component to this, and you'll see this below your information, you know, name, tagline, about. There's that dashboard section. It's going to remind you, you can turn on your career interests to attract recruiters to look at your profile. If you're ready to start your next career, your profile looks good, it's complete. This is where recruiters are going to know, yes, you are open and available for employment. You can put a couple notes on there. They give you 500 characters. You know, I always tell transitioning service members, good way to include your start date. You can utilize locations and job keywords in here, so recruiters know what types of roles you're open for. So an FYI there, it's a great thing to do as part of the job search piece. Now, LinkedIn Premium for military community members. This is something you should absolutely take advantage of if you have not yet. So that linkedin.com/military. So if you're transitioning out of the military or a veteran, you get a year for free through this. They're also going to give you some extra tips and tricks. You'll see some stuff show up in your feed that's very specific for the military side of the house. You get more exposure. You get LinkedIn Learning for free. You get more post views. It's easier for individuals to connect with you. Plus, you can also use InMail when you're not connected to someone. So let's say you want to talk to a recruiter, but they're not within your network. They're one of those third connections. You'll have the capability then to send them an InMail message and then connect with them. So just kind of an FYI there. Spouses, the general rule, it's within 2 years of getting to your duty station. And then once you leave, if your premium's up, then you can go ahead and access the premium account again. So it's great. I always tell people, you got it for free, use it when you need it. It is there for you. And then, of course, I talk about finding a mentor as well. It's a really common conversation that I have with all of my O2O participants too. Just making sure you find somebody industry. So yeah, you can start getting acclimated with what things are going to be moving forward. You can see common things that pop up that are going to be important for the industry that you can talk about, that you can engage with. So it's really important, I think, for everybody to find a mentor. So LinkedIn Career has an advice hub that they've been updating and adding to. So that's a great place to, you know, just to see, well, here's what I'm doing, help. Yeah, American Corporate Partners is big. I have a mentor through ACP just to bounce ideas off to and talk to somebody. Especially spouses moving around. This is great to, ask them, hey, like, is there another mill spouse on here that I can have a conversation with? Veteran mentor network on LinkedIn. That's the industry. There's all of these great organizations. Those of you that do O2O, yeah, you're going to be part of our alumni program when you graduate. So just making sure you're finding the right people to have conversations with and connect with is really what makes LinkedIn such a powerful place to be able to connect and get that information. We'll go to the next slide, and then let me go ahead and see. We've got a USMC recruiting time does not pop up with a logo. I've changed the name to see if one will generate. No luck. James, the best thing you can do is US Marine Corps, just by itself, or just type in Marine Corps, see what keywords you need to utilize. You may even want to check in with some of your other peers to see how they've gotten the logo to pop up, and then just talk about your recruiting time as your work experience in there. So I know USMC's in there, but for the recruiting piece of it, some individual jobs and units have their own logo in there. If it doesn't, just go for the main body. So that's what'll be key in there for you. Because yeah, I've even seen some people that have served with like 82nd, like it's got its own logo in there. I think Army recruiting has its own logo in there. So you may just have to focus with the larger body to be able to get that to pop in there. So I've mentioned in here like who you connect with. These are just some ideas in here. Of course, we want to connect with peers. We want to connect with previous coworkers. Mill spouse, we got a big community on LinkedIn, all kinds of events going on. Just an FYI to those of you that are on Clubhouse, there's Mill Spouse Mondays on there. It's another social media platform. We advertise for it on LinkedIn. So there's all of these great things you could do to find this information out there. The first thing, especially if you do not have 500 connections on there and you are looking for job search, put keyword recruiter in there and see who pops back, or talent acquisition. They give great advice. I'll give you an example to, Anthony from Lockheed Martin is great. He pushes out tons of information. Theta Johnson from Amazon puts a lot of stuff out there. You guys will see Mike Quinn out there, with his LinkedIn cheat sheet, anything he's got going on. You could put SkillBridge in. You find everybody that's associated with SkillBridge programs like myself, that's constantly pushing things out. If you're going for your PMP, find your local PMI chapter, add people, add the organization in. These are all of the things that are out there for you to be able to connect with. There's influencers in every industry or parts of the military community. There's insiders. There's people that are going to connect you to other people. And I like to call myself a connector also, because I leave my network open. If you're connected with me, you can see who's in my network on LinkedIn. Not everybody does that. So this is where you want to focus on good, solid, meaningful connections. Whether you're looking for a job role or not, always connect with people and stay engaged with your profile. Log in at least once every 24 hours to show that you are active on the platform. That's something that's going to be important. So that's kind of the key piece in here and what to think about moving forward. Next slide. Okay, so this is where we've got the Q&A section in here. I'll actually go ahead and John, I'll have you park it on the last slide just so people have my info up. So I've got my URL in here. I've got my LinkedIn URL so y'all can connect with me and see my hashtags. But I really want to, we still got some time left here to answer some questions. Oh, we've got a few minutes left. I hope I answered a lot of the questions going through it, but I want to make sure if any of you have any really pressing questions right now, anything that I went over, I can answer it for you. And then of course, please connect with me. Anybody else have anything for me? Either chat or can they can take themselves, you can take yourself off of mute and have a little chat with me too.
It's definitely this is a time. This is John again. It's definitely this is a time to again, like what Laura said. Thank you, Laura, for your time. But definitely, this is a forum and chance to ask any questions. If you have any advice, definitely jump on and give help each other out and give your advice and mentor.
Yeah, sorry, this
others.
is like whirlwind LinkedIn 101. LinkedIn, I could talk for it for like 5 hours, no joke. Okay, so I have a hard time writing intro messages and people connect with me. I just don't know what to say other than thank you. And Jennifer, sometimes there really isn't too much more to say depending on the reason for the connection. If you're trying to, so I'll say this, if you're trying to connect with somebody, especially when they're, they're not directly somebody in your network, they're not a second, let's say they're a third connection on there, make sure you let people know, hi, you're connected with so-and-so, and I'm interested in this, and this is why I'm connecting with you. Just a quick little blurb. It's proper etiquette when you're connecting with individuals, you leave a little note. Now, for me, it's less of a big deal, especially if I see you're connected with somebody already in my network and you're trying to connect with me. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Like that's why you're connecting with me. But if you really want to open up and have a conversation with this person, yeah, by all means, let them know why you're connecting with them. If it's somebody that's connecting with you and, I'm going to tell you a lot of the messages you get from people, you can kind of tell that they're auto messages. It's like, hi, thanks for connecting with me and networking. I'm looking forward to our relationship. And it like asks a question. Some of that's auto-generated. People do that, especially when they're connecting with a lot of people. So I will leave it up to you. If it's somebody that you're very interested in, take a look at their profile. They've connected with you, you've got this message. Sometimes a thank you suffices. If you want to open it up and maybe have a little bit of a larger conversation with the person, take a look at their profile and then see what else to say to them. Sometimes I do that too, but I always at least respond every time I get a message from somebody when I connect with them. Okay. Yes, John, absolutely. So I've got my URL up. Let me grab it again for you all. I will go ahead and put it in the chat as well. So let me see here. I'm going to grab the URL for you. And I'm sorry y'all are hearing my next meeting going off on Microsoft Teams. So I apologize for that.
Hey, while you're typing that, I did want to say I saw recently on the VA website that military spouses are also eligible for 1 year of LinkedIn Premium.
Yes. So yeah, spouses are in with that as well. Oh, I don't know why I did that privately. Let me put that out for everybody. Spouses have other eligibility too. If you're active duty and you're PCSing, you can actually take advantage of that premium profile more than once, just depending on how long you've been at an installation. So if you're moving to another installation and that premium profile's up, you can actually reactivate it. They want to make sure you've got the capability and you can utilize them for the job search. Because as most of us know, as spouses, there's always going to be that difficulty in the job search every time we move. You have to reinvent yourself so often. So is there, and they're being very supportive of the spouse population. Any other questions, comments, concerns that those you want to engage with me and ask me questions too? If something pops up on your profile, please feel free. Give me if I don't answer right away, I apologize, but I promise I will get back to you. It gets a little crowded in there sometimes. But yeah.
All right, so right quick, if you want to get information like the recording and stuff like that, you'll have a filtered recording of it, like on YouTube, or we can just connect with you on LinkedIn to get the program.
So yes, please connect with me. Oh, John, go ahead.
I'll interrupt here. So we're gonna post this this video here on our YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and paste the info on that one. And then Laura, if you want to send me any resources or information to me, and I'll go ahead and send it out to the participants and share that if you would like to make it easier.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll couple things together, some cheat sheets for you all. And yeah, I'm more than happy to engage if you want to have a chat with me too on LinkedIn. I'm good.
And anything that's on our recorded chat, we could just go onto our chat and file and save that on our own personal desktop here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mhm. Anything else for me, y'all? I hope it was I hope everything's enlightening. I hope you learned something.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Very
So
informative.
thank you.
Most definitely. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us.
I always have a lot of fun doing this. So hopefully John will have me back again. I may focus on some other specific parts of the site too. Said this is LinkedIn is one of those things that you can talk about for hours with people. There's just so much.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate all your information and your mentorship, your guidance. So I'll just end this here. Just kind of my parting words. Again, I had talked about the algorithm and just for me, for a hard time to use LinkedIn because I'm not a social media type person. I don't have Facebook. I don't have anything like that. So just going on LinkedIn was kind of, I know, difficult for me to put myself out there. So at first I seen that, I kind of wondered, how these people are getting all these likes and these views and, all this gaining interest where I'm trying to, put myself out there and wondering why, that my roadblock or for that. And I just want to put it out there again. I know you guys know, but again, this LinkedIn is a payoff system, right? So the more you use it, the more you make comments to people's posts, the more you share, the more you create your own posts, hashtags. That's how you're gonna get the benefits of putting your brand out there, and that's how you're gonna get known throughout, the format or the database, if you will. So definitely to benefit you to if you're in a career search or if you want to mentor people, if you want to create that brand we're talking about, you definitely have to put the time into it. I know there's a challenge out there that 30-day challenge where people post every day for 30 days, and that's going to definitely create your interest, your brand, and it's going to definitely open up your connections and network. And then that way, when for me, I'm doing LinkedIn now for veterans to help them out. So I'm definitely putting the resumes out there. I'm putting out job opportunities. So I want to definitely expand my reach because that's going to benefit the veteran. So I'm still working with that. I'm still learning. So hopefully I'll build upon that. But again, definitely, if you have any questions, if you want to talk on the side or set something up with NextOp, NextOp is all about mentorship and helping anyone out with their profile. We could do individual one-on-one just to go over the do's and don'ts through LinkedIn, a little more personable. Just let us know. And again, thank you very much for your time and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you,
you.
NextOp, for having
Thank you,
me.
Laura.
Yeah, thanks.
Get it. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, y'all.